Russia says it used the Oreshnik hypersonic missile in a massive strike on Ukraine. What's confirmed, what's claimed, and why the signal matters more than the blast. This story is not only about another night of drones and missiles over Ukraine, it is about a message, carefully shaped, deliberately amplified, and aimed at multiple audiences at once. Russia says it launched its nuclear-capable hypersonic ballistic missile, known as Oreshnik, as part of a large overnight strike on Ukraine, with reported impacts on critical infrastructure in western Ukraine, in and around the Lviv region near the Polish border. Ukraine rejects Moscow's stated justification and treats the episode as escalation, designed to pressure society, strain air defense, and raise the psychological cost of continued resistance. What stands out is not only the damage reported on the ground, but the strategic theater in the sky. The decision to showcase a weapon Russia describes as exceptionally fast, hard to intercept, and inherently tied to nuclear deterrence, even when used conventionally. Source: Reuters. What follows is the essential point. Modern war is fought in two arenas at once. There is the arena of physical destruction, and there is the arena of meaning. When a state highlights a particular capability, especially one with nuclear associations, it is often trying to shift the entire conversation from what happened to what could happen. Number 1. What happened and what we should treat as claims. Based on international reporting, the strike was described as a combined assault, drones and missiles launched across multiple vectors, a pattern designed to complicate interception and increase the chance of at least some hits. Ukrainian officials reported impacts on critical infrastructure in western Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry said the Oreshnik was used in this operation, framing it as retaliation for an alleged Ukrainian drone attempt against a residence used by President Vladimir Putin, an allegation Ukraine denies. Two journalistic rules matter here, especially for readers who want clarity rather than hype. Separate statements from verification. In fast-moving conflict reporting, many details emerge first as official claims, then are partly confirmed, then revised. Focus on what changes the strategic picture. A single new weapon system does not automatically change the battlefield, but it can change perceptions, decisions, and risk calculations. If the reported use of Oreshnik is accurate, it would mark another instance where Russia uses the weapon not only as a military instrument, but as a political signal. Number 2. Why western Ukraine, and Lviv in particular, carries extra weight. To many people outside the region, western Ukraine sounds like geography. In reality, it is a strategic system. The Lviv region sits on the logistical and infrastructural spine that connects Ukraine to Europe. This does not mean it is merely a safe rear. It means it is a junction where energy networks, transportation corridors, and supply routes converge. When strikes occur in this zone, even limited physical damage can carry outsized symbolic and operational meaning. It pressures lines that support both civilian life and wartime continuity. It signals proximity to NATO territory, especially Poland. It aims to remind European publics that the war's shockwaves are not abstract. That last point matters. The closer a strike appears to the European border, the more it can influence political debate inside Europe about air defense, escalation risk, and how long and how intensely support can be sustained. Number 3. What is Oreshnik and why its name now matters in public discourse? Oreshnik is described in reporting as an intermediate-range hypersonic ballistic missile capable of carrying multiple warheads and capable, at least in design, of nuclear payloads. The technical details are important, but the strategic psychology is even more important. Weapons like this sit at the edge of two worlds: conventional warfighting, where the focus is targets, damage, and operational effects, and nuclear deterrence, where the focus is signaling, ambiguity, and fear of escalation. Even when a nuclear-capable system is used with a conventional payload, its use can still be meant to do something beyond physical damage. It can be meant to reshape the emotional and political environment around the war. A sober way to understand it is this: Oreshnik is not only hardware, it is also a language. It speaks to adversaries and allies in a dialect of risk. Number 4. Why this may be more about strategy than about battlefield game changers. Here's the key analytical distinction that helps the general public make sense of the moment. A strike can be operationally significant without being strategically decisive. A strike can be strategically significant even if its operational damage is limited. If a weapon's primary value is to create uncertainty, intimidate decision-makers, or test political boundaries, then its impact is not measured only in craters. It is measured in reactions, statements, emergency meetings, shifts in military aid priorities, and changes in public mood. Russia has strong incentives to use such signaling when it wants to frame itself as holding escalation options. It wants to deter deeper Western involvement. It wants to pressure Ukraine's infrastructure and morale simultaneously. And it wants to build domestic perception of strength and initiative. Ukraine, meanwhile, has strong incentives to minimize the psychological effect while emphasizing the need for additional air defense and infrastructure resilience. This is why both sides speak with intensity about the same event. The fight is over meaning as much as over territory. Number 5. Infrastructure warfare, when the front line moves into daily life. The cold, harsh logic of infrastructure attacks is not mysterious, it is simply brutal. When electricity, heating, water, transportation, and communications become targets or suffer cascading disruptions, society becomes a part of the battlefield. The cost is not only measured in downtime, it is measured in fatigue, anxiety, medical strain, economic paralysis, and the erosion of the normal rhythms that allow a country to keep functioning under pressure. This is where the human dimension must remain visible, even in a highly analytical editorial. Behind the phrase critical infrastructure are homes, hospitals, schools, and the fragile routines that keep dignity alive during war. A single night of outages can mean a city that can't warm apartments, a clinic that relies on backup generators, or a family forced to choose between safety and survival logistics. This is where a weapon like Oreshnik, if used against such systems, plays a double role. It threatens physical networks, and it amplifies emotional insecurity, precisely because of its special status in the public imagination. Number 6. Europe's anxiety. The border is not just a line on a map. Escalation is not only a question of a missile landing in the wrong place. Escalation is also a question of accumulating risk. Europe worries when strikes occur close to NATO borders, when weapons with nuclear associations are highlighted, when messaging becomes harsher and more theatrical, when the chance of miscalculation rises. In geopolitical crises, the most dangerous moments are often those when multiple sides believe they are sending a message without fully controlling how it is interpreted. This is why European security officials typically look at these events through 3 lenses. Deterrence. Does the signal reduce or increase the likelihood of further escalation? Defense capacity. Are air defense systems sufficient for the evolving threat mix? And political cohesion. Will public opinion stay aligned with long-term support? The war has already shaped Europe's energy debate, defense spending, industrial policy, and political polarization. Strikes near the western corridor of Ukraine can intensify all of those pressures. Number 7. The narrative battle.
retaliation versus pretext. Russia frames the strike as retaliation. Ukraine describes that framing as a pretext. For the reader, the practical question is not which slogan sounds better. The practical question is what outcome is each side trying to produce. Russia's likely narrative goals include to justify escalation as reactive rather than aggressive, to shift attention towards alleged provocations, to signal resolve to the West, and to maintain domestic legitimacy. Ukraine's likely narrative goals include to prevent panic and protect social resilience, to rally international support for air defense and infrastructure protection, to portray Russia's claims as manipulation, and to frame the strike as evidence of continued threat and the need for pressure on Moscow.